The game against Siren may have come to an end, but the story is not quite over just yet. The epilogue of Volume 5 still remains to be covered, which sets up what is to come in the future. It is relatively short, only about 10 to 12 pages, and is split between 3 different groups of characters. But the different plot points that are addressed in each of them is very important, not only for things to come, but also the themes that are being established in No Game No Life. For starters, we have Steph, who is once again in her office, as Sora, Shiro, and Jibril barge in. Sora is once again asking, "What is love?" And of course, Steph is wondering why he's on this again, because they addressed all of that throughout the game with Siren, and Sora still has no idea what love is, but now it's a different kind of love. Not romantic love, but parental love. Because Sora says that he's a father now, which Steph, having this bomb dropped on her, is taking some time to process exactly what Sora just said, because, how? But Jibril says that Siren is quite fertile. The queen, in particular, with only a few hairs from Sora's head, she was able to conceive a child, which is essentially a clone of Layla, but still Sora's child nonetheless. That is how Siren reproduces. And so Sora is wondering if he should go to Ocean to see his daughter, and he doesn't know how to react, whether he should bring something, whether, he's freaking out, having never been a father before, and now all of a sudden being the father of a small child. But it turns out he doesn't have to go to Ocean, because Izuna walks in, while holding a fish in her mouth. Except it's not a fish. It is a small siren girl. And the first words out of her mouth send Sora spiraling. The first word she says is "Daddy." And Sora immediately runs to start gushing over his daughter. He is awakened to parental love, at least until he's elbowed in the side by Shiro, who, Shiro thinks that he doesn't need this at all, because, again, Shiro does not want anyone taking Sora's attention away from her. Sora is her entire world, and she doesn't want anyone threatening that. Jibril, though, is curious about the child now in front of them, because she didn't think Siren could leave the sea, but Plum is there as well to help assist. Regardless, though, she does need water or else she will die. And so Sora starts panicking. Well, there's a pond out front of the castle of Elkia, so will that work? Or do we need a bucket? Do we need to get some water? And Jibril then sits back and watches the ruckus unfolding in Steph's office. There's Werebeast, Imanity, and Flugel, and even Siren and Dampier, with no sign of conflict in sight. They are all just intermingling. And she realizes that the world is changing. Avantime, even Azrael, is changing. With her masters, Sora and Shiro, at the center of it all. The world of Disboard is changing as it has not since the implementation of the Ten Covenants, or even before that during the Great War. Sora and Shiro are bringing about this change, and Jibril expresses to herself that the gospel of her masters will certainly become myth. Soon, not too long from now. And then she writes something else in the book that she's been writing, the observation journal that she has of Sora and Shiro, her holy scripture that will become myth. Year, month, day. Master has experienced immaculate conception. So, this little scene goes to show that the world is certainly changing. Something that we've seen throughout No Game No Life as Sora and Shiro, the games that they play, are having an effect on the world. They are bringing the different races together, as seen by 5 of them in the exact same room with no conflict. But it also shows that their story will be passed on long past their lifespans. Jibril, who is immortal, is going to be preaching their good word for time to come. Though that word is going to be a little bit embellished, because yes, technically she's not wrong that it's immaculate conception, the fact that the Queen of the Siren just took a couple hairs from Sora and produced a child, but that's not exactly what it is. That's just Siren's normal way of reproducing. Jibril, with how she sees her masters and how she reveres them and loves them deeply, the scripture that she is going to write is going to be from a very biased perspective. Regardless, even removing that bias, Sora and Shiro are bringing about great change in the world, and whether the word is passed down by Jabril's scripture, by the word of Tet, or the histories of the different nations whom Sora and Shiro are going to shape their futures, well, Sora and Shiro's legacy is going to be passed down throughout the history of Disboard. Maybe it will even be Sora's daughter that passes on some of this history, so long as, she doesn't take after the stupidity of her mother. And with that being said, let's address the child in the room. This child, the daughter of Sora, is not going to be a major player in No Game No Life. In fact, as of Volume 12, I believe this instance right here is the only time we ever see or interact with the Siren Girl that is Sora's daughter. Not to say that she won't become an influential character in the series at some point, or maybe have another scene at the very least, but it seems very unlikely. In fact, this seems like it was mostly added in as a gag, but there is still purpose with the introduction of Sora's daughter. Namely, this gives Layla a reason to try to call Sora back to her, because Sora has no interest in Layla. As per Layla's design, that's exactly what she wants, but she still wants Sora around to ignore her. She likes the feeling of being ignored, I'm guessing, more with Sora in person, there to ignore her, to insult her, to step on her, if he so chooses, which she would very much like, but he does not want to do so, etc. So I think that's the entire reason that this Siren Girl showed up when she did, because Layla wanted to see Sora, wanted to have a reason for him to come back, and sending their daughter out there, as well as Plum, because Plum still, unfortunately for him, being subservient to the Siren, is forced to obey their bidding. And so Layla probably said, yeah, take my daughter out to Sora and try to bring him back here. Or at least make sure to keep that connection alive, make sure he doesn't forget about me, etc. So, we may never see the daughter again. We might see at some point, maybe in the epilogue of No Game No Life, maybe there'll be some other purpose that this daughter has to fulfill. Only time will tell, and we will have to wait and see. But for now, there's other characters that we need to address in this epilogue. Next, we see Clemmy and Feel in the capital city of Elven Gard. They're playing a game against one another, and Clemmy has just lost against Feel. But she's not upset by it. Instead, she starts writing in her notebook different strategies that she didn't try, things that she should try next time, and ways that she thinks she might be able to beat Feel. In the 2 weeks since the game against the Eastern Federation, she has filled 50 of these notebooks. Feel comments that Clemmy doesn't really seem to mind losing, and of course, Clemmy says she doesn't, because she learns every single time. The entire purpose of these games is that Clemmy realizes that there is no rational way that humanity can beat a race that can use magic. So she's trying to discover an irrational way to do so. Thinking a lot like Sora, obtaining Sora's memories has changed her, given her a very different perspective on life, on the world of Disboard, and on how to approach games. And she is learning from that at a very rapid pace. Her determination is quite frightening, and it makes her quite an interesting character. At that moment, though, Feel is surprised, because as she touches the gem in her head, she gets a message through the linker net, which is actually the special ability of the fairies. They pretty much have the ability to unite everyone's consciousness and share information through that. It's essentially the internet through telepathy. And you might be asking, why does Feel have access to this linker net? Well, as we found out throughout this volume, more than half of the race of fairies is enslaved to the elves. And so, the elves utilize the fairies' abilities, in particular the linker net, to share information and to keep their communications up, which is why Feel wanting to free the slaves is tantamount to treason, because freeing the slaves, freeing all of the fairies that they have had under their thumb for however long, well, that's revealing every state secret that the Elven community has ever kept, because it's shared through the Linkernet. The fairies are privy to this information, but, being enslaved, they are forced to keep that information secret, can't share it with outside races. If they are no longer slaves, well then that information is free to the rest of the world, or rather, the fairies are free to do with that information what they please, and, well, that would not go over so well for the high society of Elven Gard. In fact, it would most likely mean the collapse of the entire Elven civilization as it is known, which is exactly what Feel is aiming for. And Feel receives a message, and her eyes go wide at what she hears. Clemmy asks her what happens, is it an emergency? But Feel simply says that, well, Elkia has annexed both Siren and Dampier, all of Ocean, which Clemmy thinks that's not too surprising. But as Feel continues, it does become surprising, as not only Ocean, but also the Council of 18 Wings, Avontheim, has decided to join Elkia as well. And Clemmy thinks that is surprising, but it's not out of the realm of expectations, because with Sora and Shiro's plan, it was going to have to happen eventually. The problem is that it's happening much too fast. Within 2 weeks, immediately after annexing all of the Eastern Federation, the third largest country in the entire world, they've now annexed a higher race. With this frightening speed, and with them able to do that in the first place, now the major players of Disboard are going to be paying attention. Those in Elven Gard and Hardenfell, the largest and second largest nation on Disboard, the land of the elves and the dwarves, and they are going to be taking a more aggressive stance towards Elkia, which, of course, is still within the realm of expectations. This is something that Sora and Shiro have anticipated from the beginning. As they start making more moves, of course, people are going to start paying attention. They might consider it just a fluke that humanity was able to best the werebeasts at their own game, but once things start happening in repeated succession, especially now that, well, humanity has annexed Werebeast, Siren, Dampier, and Flugel, 4 races, out of the 16 that exist, that means they've now, quote-unquote, conquered a quarter of the races on Disboard. Yeah, everyone else is going to be on guard. But even though it's happening quite fast, it's still not a problem for Feel and Clemmy, because they have been preparing as well, a mad scramble of sorts, and so they are preparing to set out. They claim that they won't be able to return for quite a while, so they're going on quite a journey. And as they begin walking down a road which they will not return for some time, Feel asks Clemmy about what she was talking about in the prologue of Volume 5, as she was talking about Sora and the type of person that he is. And Feel asks her to elaborate on that. And Clemmy says that Sora is someone who can never lie to himself, and therefore he can't lie at all. For if he ever said, "This is my limit, this is as far as I can go," then in doing so, that would be denying his sister's humanity. Now, on its surface, this may be a little bit difficult to understand, but essentially what that means is Sora and Shiro are both human, but Shiro has infinite possibilities. In Sora's eyes, she is a player. She is someone who is actively playing the game and can soar without limitations. She will continue to grow, expand, and can reach heights that no one else can. But she's still the same race of being as Sora. So, knowing that, Sora can never say that this is my limit. This is the limit of humanity. This is as far as I can go. Because he knows that Shiro can go further, and he does not want to leave her alone. So he can never say that to himself. He can never lie to himself. He knows that he can push things further, because he's already proven time and again that he can. And so Sora is someone who cannot lie. And then Clemmy turns to Feel and asks her quite an interesting question, asking her if she knows the method to achieve objectives, one common to all things. You first prepare, you get ready, and then you try and fail. And then you learn, you reevaluate, you try again, and you fail again. If you do this an infinite number of times, then there is nothing that you cannot achieve. Feel thinks this is quite a wild argument, but instead of being doubtful, she's rather impressed with her companion. And Clammy continues thinking that there is nothing in this world that one cannot do. The only things that one cannot do are the things that one has not done yet. What remained after that was simply the face-off with time. And the ones who could pass that face-off down among the generations to come were the weak. Clammy continues, saying that neither I nor Sora is superhuman or a genius, but there's simply no need to be. The important thing is to try to be. And then she says one of the most profound lines in, all of No Game No Life, and it's something that I find just brilliant writing. She goes on to say that it is through our infinite failures that will light the way for those who follow. A lamp for walking through the darkness. For Sora, he's lighting the way for Shiro. And for her, she's lighting the way for Feel. Even the endless defeats of the old king of Elkia would someday be a lamp to light the way for humanity. Something that we've seen throughout No Game No Life already. The old king was the linchpin to figuring out the Werebeast game, and to figuring out why the queen slept. The true conditions for winning the game against the Siren. The old king did light the way for humanity. As his successor, Sora was able to take up the mantle, use that information, and started to change the world. Not only is he lighting the way for humanity, but he's lighting the way for everyone in the entire world to follow. This is such a wonderful connection for all of No Game No Life. The changing world that had been consumed in darkness since the time of the Great War is now beginning to change by the light of Sora and Shiro, as well as Clammy and Feel. Everyone is beginning to change because of the light that they brought to the world. On a more microscopic level, Sora is lighting the way for Shiro. Through his infinite failures, he is allowing Shiro to walk freely. And that's the same with Clammy and Feel, as they have already been compared as both of them are two players in one. Sora and Shiro, Clammy and Feel. Clammy is also lighting the way for Feel, which also means that Shiro and Feel are the players, that they are the ones who can reach infinite possibilities, that there is no limit to what they can achieve, which is very much true. We know that Feel is a hexcaster. We know the capabilities that she has, and she might even be more than a hexcaster, but with the potential that these two have, I'm really curious to see how their interactions will go in the future. And it's at this point that Feel asks Clammy what she actually thinks of Sora, what she makes of him. And she says that he's simply a person who decided to become a player, that he's a person who decided to stop being a puppet. A person whom one day we shall surpass, perhaps? Which means that Clammy and Feel, although they are on board with Sora's entire idea of bringing together the world of Disboard, Clammy and Feel also have their own objectives, and are wanting to challenge Sora and Shiro again. Now, given the fact that they are gamers in and of themselves, this makes sense, but Clammy might also have the idea that she could take Sora's place to bring the world together. Maybe she has other ideas, different experiences having lived in Elven Gard. While she has Sora's memories, Sora does not have all of hers. Some of hers, but not everything, not the most important ones that Clammy kept close to herself, on the pieces that Sora did not obtain in the Existence Othello game. So I am really curious to see how the dynamic between Sora and Clammy, along with Feel and Shiro, continues into the future, because they will have many more interactions, and I can't wait to discuss them. But there's still one more group of people that we have yet to discuss in this epilogue, and potentially this is the most important one. As in Kanagari, the capital of the Eastern Federation, the Shrine Maiden sits upon the railing of the bridge in her shrine, holding in her hand the Werebeast piece. As she plays with the pawn that seems to be made of light, she contemplates a word, Pureya, which, as she says in the Humanity tongue, has two separate meanings. player and prayer. In other words, a player, one who abides by their own will, marching forward, embracing the unknown, and looking towards the future. Or prayer, one who defers to another's will, who turns away from the unknown and entrusts the future to another. The Shrine Maiden then turns to Ino, who's also there at the time, and she just quite blatantly says that it was my opinion that we should have left you with Siren and Dampier. To which Ino agrees. With a simple sacrifice of a single individual, they would have had Siren and Dampier in the palm of their hand. There would be no risk at all, save for that one individual. There was no need to play the game that Sora and Shiro played. It was true that they had won the game in the end, but it was a risk that they did not need to take. And it was a risk that the Shrine Maiden would not have taken. And yet, Sora simply offered Imanity up as Dampier bait. And throughout the game, Sora and Shiro were able to turn it around, but by saying turn it around, that implies that there was risk in the first place. For Sora and Shiro, it didn't seem like there was any risk at all. They were certain of their victory. The Shrine Maiden then asks Ino what he makes of Sora, and he simply can't find an answer. So the Shrine Maiden simply says that he's a swindler and a fraud, but he's someone who doesn't lie. No, he cannot lie. The Shrine Maiden knows nothing of Sora before he came to this world. Unlike Clammy, who also reached that same conclusion that Sora is someone who cannot lie, the Shrine Maiden simply just has it on instinct. Whether it's her werebeast instincts or what have you, after observing Sora and Shiro throughout their time in the Eastern Federation, she is certain that Sora must have had a tough life before coming here, before arriving at the world of Disboard. Why would he never want to return to the old world that he came from if that wasn't the case? She reasons that a fellow as skilled in mind games as Sora couldn't find a romantic partner? Well, that's simply because he cannot lie to himself. He couldn't tell a girl that he loved her when he actually didn't. And the Shrine Maiden then ponders that the reason he probably has no attachment to his old world is simply because he could not accept a world that could not accept the only girl that he loved, which is Shiro. As I mentioned in my review of Chapter 4 of Volume 5, Sora does love Shiro, but it's not a romantic kind of love. It is something much deeper than that. And yet, Shiro is the only girl that Sora loved. A girl that was rejected by his old world, but one that is accepted in the world of Disboard. And considering that Sora stuck to his guns, stuck to his morals and his beliefs, the Shrine Maiden ponders that, I think it's about time that I put my pride aside. And as she said this, Ino saw something in the Shrine Maiden's face that he had not seen in a long time. And the Shrine Maiden tells Ino, a man who stayed true to himself, refusing to abandon you, even though I would have. Are you not game to give him a chance? And Ino turns to the Shrine Maiden and agrees to do so, if it would allow her to dream once more, to share her dreams with him. And then, with the werebeast piece still in her hand, she flicks it upwards and exclaims, "Come on, Sora, let's see it. The continuation of my dream. The dream that a piece could fly off of the board. The dream that she had once dreamed and let collapse." And this sets up the arc that is to come, as the Shrine Maiden finally now trusts Sora enough to put her fate in his hands, to the continuation of her dream. As we learned before, the Shrine Maiden had the same idea as Sora, to bring together all of the races of the world. But it was a dream that she gave up, that a mere piece could not become a player, that a mere piece could not change the entire world. But Sora is changing the Shrine Maiden's perspective. He's throwing rational conclusions to the sidelines and barging ahead. Irrational as though it may be, he is producing results, and that has been enough to change the Shrine Maiden's mind. And that is why, now, she will actually entrust Sora with the old Deus that's inside of her. Which, at the end of the anime, you know, she was a little bit too forthcoming with that. I do honestly think that it's a much better build-up to have volumes 4 and 5 of the light novel going through the entirety of Ocean with Siren and Dampier, and having the Shrine Maiden witness Sora and Shiro's outlook and how they are handling things firsthand. That when they declare, we're not going to let anyone die, they mean it. And they are going to take the entire world without a single sacrifice. And so, with the Shrine Maiden's trust, the next arc is set up. The game against a god. But before we actually get there, we have the entirety of Volume 6, which is the time of the Great War. So, we'll have to wait on that one, but look forward to the videos to come. There's still much more to discuss about the Ocean arc, and one other important thing that we got in this epilogue is we saw, for the first time, another race piece other than Imanities. Imanity is the king, but the werebeasts are not but a pawn. Now, every race on Disboard has their own race piece. 16 races, 16 pieces, the exact number that you will have on the chessboard. And one of the 8 pawns is the werebeast. Which may not seem all that impressive, but remember, in the game of chess, any pawn, if they reach the other side of the board, can promote into any other piece. So it is quite possible that those who are pawns are the ones with the most potential, perhaps. But that's a topic I'll also discuss in a different video as more races are introduced into the series. So, look forward to that. And if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to the Daily Flugel, as there is plenty more to come. And if you want to see some games played live, I also stream over on Twitch a couple times a week, and I would love to see you there. But with that being said, I will see you guys in the next video. Ashente.